Hi, my name is Greg Dunlap, and this is a video tutorial about how to submit your pinball tournament results to the IFPA for ranking in the World Pinball Player Rankings system. So the IFPA tournament results submission form lives on the IFPA's website, ifpapinball.com, under Tournaments, Submit Results. So you click right there, and there's some information here that you have to fill out in order to submit your result. The first thing is your name and an email address. Now, this name and email address must be the same name and email address under which the original tournament was registered, and you will actually have to have access to this email address's mail in order to complete your tournament submission. So if neither of those things are true, then you need to find somebody for whom they are true, and that person needs to manage this submission, because if neither of those things are true, you're not going to get very far in this. So I'm going to enter my email address because this tournament that we're about to submit was mine. Now, if you've entered these two things properly, you'll get a list of tournaments that this tournament director has created over here on the right under Tournaments in a drop-down. I've only got one, and it's our Flippin' with the Greats charity fundraiser. And that is indeed the results that we are going to be submitting here today. So I choose that, and then you get to choose what division you're in. You can actually type anything you want to in here, with the note that that is what will appear on the page that displays the results for this tournament. So I'm going to actually start with our side tournament. So I'll enter that, and then we will choose the date on which this tournament happened. That stuff's all pretty easy. Now over here in the results is really where the fun begins. What you need to have is a list of your tournament's results with the position of the player as well as the name of the player. So for instance, let's say that Nicole Enright won this tournament and Keith Elwin came in second. Then we could go on and on like that and list our tournament results. Now, you're probably not going to want to type these in by hand, or maybe you will, but I never do, because whenever I run a tournament, I always have a computer there with a spreadsheet that controls all of the stuff that we're doing. So I'm actually just going to go to my spreadsheet here, and in Google Docs, you can just select, if you've got a column with your positions and a column with names, then you can just select them, copy and paste, like so, and they come right in. You do have to manually change them so that they have the commas that they need instead of the tabs that come by default. I'm sure somebody's going to post in the comments on this about some really easy way to make this happen rather than having it do it by hand, but I've only got 14 players, and it's really not that big a deal to just fix it right here. So having gotten our list of tournament players in, we have to click the Process button. Now what happens here is that over on the right, the program, the website, looks into the IFPA database and tries to match the names to individual players in the database. When it can't match names, they show up in yellow, and these are ones that have to be fixed. There are two possibilities. Either the player is in the database and their name is spelled differently than it appears in the database, or the player is actually new and submitting an entry to the ranking system for the first time. Now, if the player is new and submitting an entry to the ranking system for the first time, you don't need to do anything. If all four of these players were brand new, then I could just leave them as is and move on. Now, in this case, that's not true, so they need to be fixed. Now, for this one here, I can see that you can see here that the IFPA database has suggested the name that it's determined is closest to the one that I entered. In this case, that is correct. Andy Cobb is spelled with two B's instead of one as they have it here. So I can actually just click on that link right there, and it will fix it for me. It'll fix it over here and over here. So that was easy. In this case, that's also true. Nate Stellhorn is actually in the database as Nathan Stellhorn. So I click his name. Easy enough. Now what's next? Pirate Mike. So Pirate Mike's a guy who plays in Portland a lot, and I know that he's not in the IFPA system as Pirate Mike, but I also happen to know personally that he's in the IFPA system as Mike Smith PDX. So what I'll do is fix his name here by hand. Mike Smith PDX, and click Process. And now you can see that it has fixed his name and he's no longer yellow. As we're going through this process, you will begin to understand that having these names correct before you get to this point is extremely useful. And if you can get your players to remember the way their names are in the IFPA's database, or if you as a tournament director can start remembering these things and putting them together in advance, it'll save you a lot of time and energy here, which I obviously haven't done. So the next one is Steve Lampros. Now, I know that that's not Steve Lampard, but I don't really know how Steve's name is put into the database necessarily. So what I'm going to do is go into the IFPA's player database and search for him. So I'll just type Lampros in here and see what comes up. Now I can see that Steve is in fact in the database, but he's really listed under his middle name, which is August. So what I'm just going to do is copy and paste, not click on his name. Now it's gone. Great. Someone tell Brian to fix that. Okay, copy and paste his name over here, like so. Process. And now we're done. We have a completed and set IFPA set of database results. And all of the names are fixed and everything's good. If you wish to make this a little easier on yourself, you can add another comma over here with the player's IFPA player ID. You can determine your IFPA player ID by going to your IFPA page and looking here where it says player number. So Steve's is 6244. Now if I had had Steve's, if we go back here and put his name in incorrectly, however, if I have his player number in there correctly and click process, you'll see that it says the name associated is different, but I've got his ID in here, and if you submit it that way, it'll be fine. Everything will work and it'll all be good. So having the IDs can help you out a little bit. However, let's face it, nobody knows their IFPA player ID unless you're one of the players with a 2-digit ID, or you're entering your player number into the database because you're obsessively checking your results on a daily basis. And so usually that's not very realistic. None of us really has that information at hand. However, if you have it, it can be useful. So I'm going to click process here again because I changed that name. Oh, and now I changed it back, and so I've got to change it back to this again. So process, great. Now we're in business. So I'm done. I can click submit results. So the tournament results have been uploaded. Now what has happened is that the results are submitted to the IFPA and an email is sent to the email address that you entered originally. In that email, there is a link, and when you get the email, all you have to do is open it up and click that link and everything will be done. You'll be finished. I'm not going to display that step here because I don't really feel like showing my entire email inbox to the wonders of the internet. However, it's a very simple step. You open your email, you open that mail, you click the link, and you're done. So let's submit another tournament. Let's get back in here again, and let's look up the tournaments I have. Flipping with the greats again, but I'm going to do the main tournament this time. So here's this. And once again, I've got another sheet here with my main tournament results. It's got a bunch of other stuff. We played pin golf, so here are our strokes and our totals and everything. But the important thing here is that here are the final results of everybody in the list. So we will copy and paste this over here again. Fix it, fix the commas. Now there are a couple of things in here to be fixed that we already know we have to fix from last time, and I'm just going to fix them by hand here because you know, why go through that whole thing again? Like, I know that Pirate Mike is Mike Smith PDX. I also know that Steve Lampros is S. August Lampros. Let's see what else we have here to fix. Nathan Stellhorn, obviously. And so, having put all this together, let's click this and see where we're at. Dave Morrell. Dave Morrell. I know what this is personally, just because I know, and that is that Dave Morrell's name has 2 R's in it. So click process again. I also know that Matthew Peterson has 1 T in his name and is spelled incorrectly here. So I will also fix that by hand, or I can just click his name because I know what that means. Now, this says Dave Morrell. So I'm going to, again, go to search. And again, you know, this is not a perfect system, and but it's what we've got. Dave, oh, it's David Morrell. Aha, there's my problem. So, David Morrell, process. Good. Sometimes when I get new players coming to the tournaments, I will always search for them, even if I'm pretty sure that it's the first time that they've played in a tournament, because it's always possible that they played in another tournament somewhere else, and they're already in the database, but their name is spelled wrong. So unless I know, because I have submitted a lot of tournaments through this thing in the last year, unless I know in my head what, you know, people's names are and stuff, or who is who, then I'll usually check on them to make sure, to verify. Now you'll see up here that there's a red box that says we have an error. The tie for position 9 is incorrect and it should be 8. So the IFPA ranking system has a way of numbering ties which is not the way that you would typically number ties when you list results. And it has to do with the way that they rank ties, because if 2 people are tied in the IFPA system, then they both get the points of the higher ranked person. So for the IFPA's purposes, 2 people that are tied here, which would usually be listed as 9th, should be 8th. And actually that's wrong. They should have been 8th in the first place. So never mind. Now if I process this again, I have the same problem at position 11, because apparently when I made this together, I was on drugs. Now then, so normally it would be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So you would normally list all these, this is what I was talking about, as 12. However, for the IFPA's purposes, because of the way that it chooses to give points when you have people in ties, they're actually 13th. So you can see over here again, the tie for 14 is incorrect and it should be 13. So go back over here, fix this by hand, 13, 13, and then it'll be 13, 14, 15, 16, 16. So the tie for position should be 15. Really should have tried this before I did, and I would have looked a lot less dumb. So position 15, and now all of that stuff is going on. The nice thing about this system is that in general, when you do something wrong, it will tell you. If it has a name that you don't recognize, then you should fix it or leave it if you know that you're right. But in general, it will warn you. That's what happened here too. I, by hand, misnumbered all of my stuff, and it warned me. It caught it. That's a good thing, because we're people and we make mistakes, but we don't want our rankings to be messed up. We want them to be good, because God knows if the rankings are messed up, Josh is going to hear about it. So we're done. Everything's good. All of my entries are here. They're all good. There are no warnings or errors. And now I can submit these results. And that's really all that there is to it. If I was to give people some tips on how to make this less painful, I would say that having some sort of experience, as time goes on, you get more experience with what your players' names are and stuff like that, and that is really useful, because because then you know when you see the misspellings, oh, this is wrong, or oh, that's wrong. If you're using Bracalope, Bracalope keeps a local database of all of the player names that you've ever entered so that you can reuse them in tournaments in the future. If you make sure that when you enter them for the first time that you use the correct spelling as is on their IFPA player profile, then that will save you tons of time down the road, because in ours here, we have several people whose names are spelled slightly differently in our Brackelope installation that we all use. We have an iPad that we all share, and so all of the players are in it, but in some cases they're spelled wrong or slightly differently, and I'm always going back and changing those and fixing them, and I wish that we had just gotten them right in the first place. If you can get player numbers or player IDs, that can be really helpful. I believe that Carl D'Angelo's software has a place to enter those player IDs, which probably becomes very helpful down the line when he's submitting results. If you're using some kind of software like that, that can be helpful, but for most day-to-day small tournaments, we're not doing that. And, you know, keeping everything in spreadsheets and stuff like this is really useful. I keep a spreadsheet for every single tournament that I run, regardless of format or necessity, just because it's good to be able to go back and reference this stuff if somebody has a problem later. I usually even keep the scorecards for like a week or two after, in case somebody says, this is wrong, something got screwed up, and then I've got this reference here, and I've got the see, I've got all the final rounds here and everything too. So that stuff's good to have. The data can be useful down the road when you're running other tournaments and stuff, and it can be useful for filling this out too. And then finally, of course, making sure that the person whose email address and name you enter when you actually submit the tournament to the calendar, which happens at Tournaments, Submit to IFPA Calendar here, you have to have a director's name and director's email is the same as the person who will actually be submitting the results, because without being able to get that email to confirm your results, nothing's going to happen, and they'll just sit there in limbo. So that's it. I hope that everybody found this useful and that it helps you submit tournament results in the future. Thanks.